Welcome, everyone. I'm Angelo Robles to the Angelo Robles Podcast. I'm also the founder and CEO at Family Office Association. We have a very special session today, and I know we've been doing so much on money, finance, the economy, macro, and that's great, but I think it's important to have some change of pace sometimes. And actually, you'll find that today's discussion, absolutely, not only in your personal and business life, it does make an impact in terms of your investing perspective and the decisions that you make as well. And a little bit later in the interview today, we're going to get to some points of view that are going to be very, very specific to that. So it's good to change things up. And here we go. We're going to title today the 2021 version, Resiliency. There is no new normal, just new. And what new looks like, well, what a surprise. It's constantly evolving. We have a return visit today from Joelle Jarvis of Mindset Partnership and Emily Donaldson Voto, also of Mindset Partnership. They are a member of what we call in my family office association our resource council, and they really live up to that term, a resource. So, ladies, I'll start with welcome to the show.
Thanks, Angelo. We just want to jump in and address the elephant in the room, right? So many people thought, hey, I can just hang on until 2021 and I'll put my new calendar up there and Groundhog Day will be over, right? There was a great big hope that when the year turned over, we'd be in a new normal. But as we know, it's been anything but normal or anything that we've ever seen at the beginning of this year. And the truth is that change is afoot constantly, right? The markets are evolving, business in itself is evolving. We have to evolve. In chaos, we're going to have to ride the wave of change until we reach a point of equilibrium. And the truth is that things are always changing. We're just creatures of habit, and we really, really, really like to know what to expect. And we fight hard to control all of our circumstances in order to be comfortable and feel like we can get by, right? And thrive, to know what to expect in our day. But right now, in times of rapid change, we have to be really, really good at understanding what we can control and what we can't control. And what we've seen with a lot of our clients is when they're feeling out of control, like the tendency is to try to control even more. And that doesn't work right now, because what's worked in the past, what worked before COVID hit, is not going to work now, right? We have to be constantly nimble. Like, nimble is the new word for today, being able to adapt, but also having a really steady course on where to look in the future. One of the things that we can always control is meaning. And we're going to revisit that time and time again during this podcast. But one of the things that's so important to understand during this time of chaos is this idea that we don't want it, we just want smooth sailing. And smooth sailing isn't going to happen right now. Everyone is being challenged right now. And everybody is having some sort of perception of loss. And for some people, some families, that loss is really real and really tragic. Like they've lost people, they've lost loved ones. Others, it's loss of connection, right? Not being able to see our older family members, maybe kids not being able to come home from college as much, maybe loss of routine, maybe loss of the normalcy. Some people are losing money. Some people have had to restructure their business. So that's a sense of loss. And when we add loss upon loss upon loss, it can really take a toll on us and our resiliency starts to wane. But regardless of specific losses, we are all terrified. And what that looks like, we are all terrified of losing freedom or choice, certainty, right? Or comfort and connection. And that's where we can all really sink our teeth into. And that's where we come back to meaning making. Really, ultimate freedom is the ability to experience any emotion, right? And the only way that we can do that consistently is if we're masters of our meaning. And so that's really what we're going to talk about today, is becoming masters of meaning. So we're not victims of circumstance, right? If we can really tune into our own mindset, and regardless of what's going on around us, say, okay, this is what I'm going to make this mean. Choose to make this mean something that's going to create opportunity for me or a different way of looking at things, then we are not victims of, oh God, like the market's going crazy, I'm losing money, or I'm not going to be able to celebrate my parents' 60th wedding anniversary or anything, right? Or I'm stuck in the house with my family, my pod, who I love dearly, and I need to get away. I can't take it anymore, versus how can I look at this in a different way? And so ultimate freedom really comes from the ability of creating meanings in your life that get you to fulfillment in your relationships, your business, with yourself and with your life. So today we're going to take you through an overview of the process by answering some questions that Joelle and I take our clients through. And this process really helps our clients shift this perception of loss to appreciating freedom and choice and creating power in their life. And so Angelo, do you have some questions that you want to start with, and we can just jump in that way?
Sure, why not? So, what are some of the biggest reasons people don't bounce back? Why do people stay stuck?
So right now people stay stuck, and always people stay stuck because they have disempowering meanings, right? And they don't have a clear vision of the future. So motivation, if you will, is like two sides of a magnet, right? There has to be the pull side of the magnet, which is the vision, like creating a compelling vision for your future. How do you want your life to be? How do you want to be feeling on a daily basis? How do you want to be experiencing your day? Right. And then there's also the push of the magnet of what you're trying to move away from. So while we are creatures of habit, we don't like redundancy, consistency, right? Everyone is using the reference of feeling like they're in Groundhog Day, the movie with Bill Murray, right? And it's like you wake up again and again and again, and it's like, oh God, I have to do this again. And so by shifting your meanings, you can actually move further towards your vision or what you want. We're going to talk a little bit about our visioning process today and the importance of that. But that clear vision to pull you forward, the magnet to pull you forward, and really becoming a master of the meanings that you're creating will help you get to where you want to go and get you to be unstuck, if you will. I like to call it getting off high center, right? Getting into motion, getting into momentum.
And I suppose another question I would have is, how can we become more flexible and adaptable to change?
So I'll jump in with this one. So just echoing on to what Emily said a minute ago too, one of the other reasons that people really stay stuck is they focus on what's missing. They focus on what they can no longer do. They focus on what they no longer can create or how they can't do things the way they were used to. And I think we talked about this in a prior podcast, and this whole thing first started. We talked about don't lament, reinvent. And so one of the things that people do that keeps them stuck is they stay stuck in the past. And so what we really want to encourage people to do is to move forward. So to be more flexible and to be more adaptable to change. Anytime you want to change anything, there's only two things you can change. You can change perception and you can change procedure. We invite you to change both. So when Emily talks about what the meaning is that you make from something, what you decide to take away from something is that perception. Instead of having the perception of loss, it can be a perception of finding a new way to do something. Most of us are not really tied to the way that we get somewhere. We are very tied to the end result, but we're not tied to the way we get there, but we think that we are. We think that the way to get somewhere is, okay, if I do this, this, and this, if I build my business to this level, if I hire these people, if I get this many assets under management, if I get in this relationship, if I do this thing, whatever it is, then my life's going to be great. I'm going to feel better. I'm going to do all these different pieces. And what we really want to get people to be focusing on is that the reason they want all those things is because there's a way they want to feel. There's a way that there's what they want their life to be about. If we can focus on how we want to feel and we want our lives to be about, there's a million ways to get there. Angelo, I know you're a big fitness guy, right? So let's say your fitness regime was going to the gym. I know you like going to the gym and you're going to do your weightlifting. You're going to do your workout. Maybe you've got your workout buddy that you work out with. And now COVID hits and there's no more gym. I know you well enough to know you're not going to say, okay, well, I guess that's it. I'm just going to be fat then. I'm just going to sit around and eat donuts and Oreo cookies.
That's
and
not going to happen.
Go to hell in a handbasket, right? You found a different way to get your exercise in. You found a different way to get your workout in. You found a different way to live your values in spite of the fact that the old way was no longer available. So that was a change in perception of being open, finding new ways to do things. And then it was a change in procedure. What did you have to do to be able to get to that result when all your old ways of getting there are no longer available? And that's really important for people to understand. If there's anything in your life right now where you're feeling stuck, you can't get where you want to go, whatever, two things: perception or procedure. How could you see it differently? How can you approach it differently? So that's kind of the basics of becoming more flexible and becoming more adaptable.
Excellent. That's actually really good. Maybe building on that a little bit, how do we change our whole way of doing things if currently our old model doesn't work anymore? And that relates to what you guys said about the necessity of change, adaptability. But I just don't want to use buzzwords. I know it takes a different mental mindset. And how do you go about that?
So we kind of put this all together in a really simple, easy acronym, and it's a little silly, but it works. So out of our Francophiles here, so our acronym is voila, right? Which is kind of like the French version of ta-da. But the voila actually stands for something really important. And if you were kind of going to look at everything that Emily and I do with all of our clients over time, it really is about helping them to build their voila. And here's what the voila stands for. And I invite everybody to write this down and do this for themselves. So the first part of the voila is V. What's your vision? And that vision is, what do you want your life to be about? In 1 year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, what do you want your life to be about? What kinds of things do you want to be doing? Where do you want to be living? What do you want your business to be about? It's not the specific goals of I want this much money and I want to have this much in the bank and I want to have this many employees and I want to have grown to this tier of whatever. It's, I want my life to be, I want to be doing something that I love, having financial abundance and financial freedom in a way that supports me and my family. I want to be living somewhere where I wake up every morning happy to be where I'm at. That's all part of our vision. I want to be doing something with my life that has impact, that empowers me. That's all part of our vision. That's our V in the voila. The O in our voila is outcome. That's where you can start looking at some specific goals that can ladder up to that vision. And that's where you can get more specific. One of my outcomes is I want to work out every day with my workout partner in the gym 5 days a week. So I have a consistent exercise plan that gets me to be a size blank by a certain date, right? That's an outcome. But that outcome may shift and change as the environment shifts and changes, or the circumstances shift and change. But my vision of feeling amazing in my body and having unstoppable health and vibrancy that gets me where I want to go, that's never going to go away. So my vision is my vision. My outcomes are some of the ways I'm going to get there. But then the next piece is equally as important, the I, and that's identity. That's how I see myself. So for a lot of us right now, we've had identity that was built on things that are no longer relevant or no longer accessible to us. Mm-hmm. Being a top trader, being, for me, I lived in Stanford before all this happened in my building. Angela, you've been there. I was the mayor of the building. I was the social director. I was the social coordinator. That was like a big part of my life, right? So now I had to find new ways and finding new things to add to my identity. It can be things that you refer to yourself as, the way you see yourself, but it can also be qualities that you embody. So things that I've been really incorporating and add to my identity, especially during this pandemic, is being more disciplined in my structure. I needed to add that to my identity of being more disciplined. I also had to get more creative and add that to my identity, because the way I was doing things before, I couldn't do them that way anymore. So that identity piece is really important. That's also a place where people get stuck in their old identity. And by creating a new identity, it gives them new opportunities. So that's the I. So we got vision, outcomes, I is for identity. The L is for leverage. The leverage is your why. Why is it important? It's been very easy for some of us during this time who've been stuck at home. We don't have access to things. It's really easy to make a lot of excuses about why to let things go. I know for a lot of us, the pandemic started, we thought it was gonna be a few months. We're like, this is great. I'm gonna metamorphosis. This is gonna be like 3 months long. I'm gonna be home, working at home. I'm gonna exercise every day. I'm gonna eat right. And at the end of the 3 months, I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna be like in this rock star shape, whatever. And then it was another 3 months and another 3 months, right? So part of that is, what's your leverage? What's your why? What's that thing that's going to have you stick with it even when it's hard, even when you don't want to? And then the last part of the voila is the actions. And those are the consistent actions that we can take on a daily, on a weekly basis towards that vision, living that identity, using our leverage, and accomplishing our outcomes. That's kind of the secret success formula that Emily and I kind of operate and get everybody to move through so that they can have the life that they want to create. And that all this nonsense about what's going on, and I think Emily said it great, and Angelo, you said it great too, everything, it's open season now. Everything's different. There's no old way. What did you say, Angela? There's no new normal. There's just new. Mm-hmm. So instead of fighting it, we all know swimming against the current is a hell of a lot harder than swimming with the current, right? Yeah. So right now, yes, there's this incredible current of opportunity, of new ways of thinking, of letting go of old beliefs. It's kind of like people were kind of holding on to the side of the pool. Everybody's letting go of the side of the pool now. There's not even a side of the pool to hold on to. So that gives a lot of opportunity to create something new. And this is an amazing time to do that.
And Emily, what can we do to become more comfortable with the unknown?
That's the $20,000 question, right? Because it's like, how can you feel certain with uncertainty, right? It's an oxymoron. And I think one of the things that came to me while Joelle was talking, when you go through the process of voila, right? You've got this really clear vision and you know ultimately what you want, right? You know the peak of the mountain is where you want to be. And you have a really compelling why. You've really taken the time to dive in and get leverage on yourself. Why is it a must for me to get there? And we start taking action, right? We start to identify those outcomes or the how that we're going to get there. And as we get closer to the mountain, all of a sudden, now, where in the past we might have planned out our exact plot and figured out exactly how we wanted to get there and have some level of reliability or certainty that would be the trail that we take. Now what we're finding is, as you get closer and closer to the mountain, the pieces that you need, those qualities within yourself, are those things like creativity and being able to be nimble, right? And looking and seeing as we get closer, oh my gosh, there are all these different ways to get up to the peak of the mountain. I just need to be flexible. I need to be adaptable. I need to stay clear on my vision of where I want to go and my why, my purpose. My purpose is going to take me there. I when Joelle said the I don't want to, I call that our inner tantrums, right? It's like but I don't want to do that today. I just want to be comfortable and I want to go back and I want to do those things that I did before. And it's fine to look at that and be like, yeah, that was great. That worked for me then. It's not going to work for me now, right? So right now, we've talked in the past about predictable surprises. Every day is a predictable surprise. Surprise, we're going to have a surprise today, right? And we have to learn to expect the unknown and the things that can hold us steady. It's like flying across the country or flying across the globe. The pilot just doesn't put in a destination and it's not a straight line, right? He's adjusting to wind currents. He's adjusting to other air traffic, right? He's adjusting to all this different environmental pressures, if you will. And so a pilot doesn't fly in a straight line. It's all these course corrections. And it's so easy for us to get caught up in this idea that, well, now that I know where I want to go, I just have to go this way. I have lots of ways to win to get there, right? It's not about the how you get there. It's about getting there and why you want to get there in the first place. And so that's part of what can help keep you there on track.
And I would say maybe a follow-up question to that. It's easy to get stuck in paralysis by analysis. How can we learn to identify that and to pivot faster?
I think that that comes down to, again, getting really clear on your vision and holding that out there in front of you, right? That is your North Star. How do you want to live? What do you want your life to be about, right? So that's your North Star. And that's what can help course correct you if you're getting too off course. And then following the rest of the voila procedure. But one of the
Mhm.
things that can help to build that solid foundation is developing routines and rituals to support you on a daily basis. Like Joelle, Angelo talked to you, Angelo, about your workout, right? And that's a routine that you do every day, I would guess, 5 days a week at least.
At least.
At least, right?
Probably
And
7.
yeah, exactly, right? And so how does working out make you feel? What does that do for you?
It makes me feel better for a variety of different reasons, both internal and external. Uh, and of course, there's days where I don't feel like doing it, sometimes more than I want to admit. But I think it's important to have a sense of discipline and realize the outcomes that I want to achieve are just not going to happen by osmosis. I have to take action to get the results that I want.
Right. So you've created meaning, which is this discipline. And if I work out every day, I'm going to feel. What are some of the feelings that you feel from from working out daily? How does it empower you?
I mean, it does feel like it gives me a sense of accomplishment because I set out to do it, a sense of mental satisfaction, and a sense of, again, physical from my perspective in terms of the things that I want to do, whether it's sporting activities or others. I need to be quote unquote on top of my game, at least as much as I could relative to my capability and my age.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing is maybe one of the reasons why you work out every day is because you want to be a participant in life. You don't want to be a spectator. You want to be able to go and do all the adventures out there that are accessible to you. Even if you don't do them every single day, you want to be able to do that. And you like the consistency and the discipline it gives you too. There's a level of accomplishment fulfillment.
Correct. I mean, using things like snowboarding, surfing, swimming, it's harder to do those when you're not mentally and physically in shape. They might even be dangerous, actually. So to be
Exactly.
able to participate, you need to be on top of your game. I mean, there's other reasons wanting to live longer and healthier, be physically active as we get older and having things in place. And, those are all kind of a combination of factors, but usually you're correct. There's one driving factor.
Awesome. That's a perfect example, right? And so that's a routine. That's something that you do every day because it helps ladder up to your ultimate vision, which is be a participant in life. Don't be a spectator. Like if you want to go snowboarding, you're not going to not do anything for a year and then try to go down a black diamond on a snowboard. That you're right, Angelo, could be really dangerous, right? Plus, you just won't have the stamina and you have a busy life, right? So there's the health benefits which are like, yeah, I got to do that. But this idea that you want to participate in life and have the stamina and energy to go out there. And so, one of the reason why I ask those questions is just to begin to elicit what are some of your routines and rituals. And routines and rituals really help build our foundation, right? They help build the foundation for ourselves and build the foundation for our lives. And so, they really help determine how we show up and what we're capable of every single day. And so one of the morning routines or morning rituals that we like to have our clients do is something physical to start the day. And for it doesn't have to be the same for every person. For somebody that's going and walking the dog every day and getting out in nature. For somebody else, it's doing yoga. For somebody else, it's doing hit in their basement. For somebody else, it's going to the gym. For somebody else, it's going for a run. For somebody else, it's just stretching. For somebody else, it's lifting weights, whatever it is, but getting the body moving, getting the physiology engaged in some way in the morning, right? Helps increase oxygenation, gets the brain online, gets the body online, and then really having routines and rituals that help drive the focus. So having a vision that's clearly printed off in front of you, where you take a moment, you connect to it. What is this day about? What does this day building up to? Where do I want to go? Right? It's like find your North Star every single day, or at least having a sense of where it is. Like Angelo, in your case, right? A big part of that North Star is I want to be a participant in life, right? I am not going to be a spectator. And you share so much with other people too, right? Is you invite them to be participants in their own lives too, versus victims of circumstance. And then really taking a look at, okay, what are my outcomes today? How am I going to ladder up to that today? So that's part of a morning ritual or morning routine that can really help set the day. I'm going to talk a little bit more. Hopefully we'll have a question of identity. If not, I'll come back to it. But there are certain things you can do around your identity as part of your morning rituals to get you online as well.
Can I also just jump in with one thing really quickly here too?
Yeah.
One of the things I think that's really important for us to remember at times like this, a lot of people are trying to figure out what it is that they're going to do, what their goals are, what they can control. Like Emily said, everyone's trying to control these things. But the bottom line is COVID, no COVID, economic crisis, no economic crisis, political issue, no political issue. What we can control has not changed. The only thing that we have control over is how we show up, period. That's it. So people are wondering, what should my goals be? What should I put my time into? I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what to do. Our answer always is, be the best version of you. There's no bad course of action when you set your life around becoming the best version of who you are, the best mentally, the best physically, the best on focus, the best relationship building, the best at articulating, whatever it is that your secret sauce is, whatever it is that makes you you, the one thing you have total certainty over, the one thing that your resiliency hinges on more than anything is you building your strength in who you are. Routines and rituals help to reinforce our identity and build our strength and build. Remember, every time we have a success, we get a dopamine hit, right? We close a deal, we get a dopamine hit. We finish an exercise routine, we get a dopamine hit. We meet a new person, we get turned on, we get a dopamine hit. One of the biggest things that's missing for a lot of us right now is we're not getting our dopamine hits because we're by ourselves. How do you do it when you're by yourself? You work on you. You get a dopamine hit because you know what? So I'll give you guys a little secret. So I really want to get a new car. I really do. And I could go get a new car tomorrow, but I'm not doing it. And why am I not doing it? Because I'm working in my voila, and I have not been working on my exercise, and I needed something to get some leverage on myself. I have a vision of how I want my body to be and how I want to feel. I've got specific outcomes of what I want to accomplish in that area. I've got an identity for the kick-ass, hot, fab over 50 mama that I want to become, right? And I got my leverage, but my leverage wasn't strong enough. Like I wasn't in touch with my leverage enough because I wasn't so fat. I wasn't so lacking energy. I wasn't any of those things. I was just not getting to that next level. I'm sure some of you guys who are listening to this can relate to that, right? Nothing's wrong. You're just not at that next level that would really make you be proud. So I'm like, okay, I want this car. I need some leverage. So what did I do? I don't know if you guys can see it. I have pictures here of the car that I want, what my body is going to look like. I'm going to apparently look exactly like Jennifer Lopez. And then I've got my calendar of the days I'm requiring myself. So my deal with myself is I'm not getting a new car until I've had 120 days of working out and 120 days of exercising in 100 and eating right in a 160-day period. That's my way I got leverage with myself. But it comes back to what Emily said, building routines and rituals. So now every day, you guys can't see this either, but I'll show you because I'm not proud. I'm in my Peloton clothes. Why? Because every time I have a break now, my routine is I jump on the Peloton for a few minutes, even if it's for 5 minutes. So I set myself up ready to go to get on that Peloton because it's part of my why. It's part of what makes me proud of who I am. Do I know exactly why I need to be in good shape? Do I have a trip planned to Bora Bora? No. Do I have a hot date with a great guy? No. But one day those things may happen. So I'm going to be ready. And that's what this is all about, is being the best version of you so that when those opportunities show up, you're ready to take advantage of them.
Well, that does kind of segue to my next question. What kind of things can we do to set ourselves up for success, to be more ready to rise to the challenges? And they'll be there every day. But with challenges also potentially comes opportunities.
Yeah, I think, this comes back again to vision, right? We've got to have our North Star and then our outcomes, which is that second part of the voila process. And what are the things that we want to do? What are the things that we need to do? What are the things that we can do to help ladder up to that vision? And these are more of the specific goals. And some goals are more outcome related, like if Joelle had said, I want to be a certain body mass index, or I want to be a certain weight, or I want to fit in a certain size pants or whatever, that's more outcome related. The other ones are more process related, like every single day, 120 days out of 160 days, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on the process versus just the outcome. And both of those types of goals are phenomenal. And really, it's about prioritizing those goals or those outcomes that are going to ladder up to your vision. We have so much noise coming at us all the time right now, right? Right now, it's almost like we're in a media lull, and I hear people saying, I'm bored. I got to find a new show. I was watching the news. Now I don't want to watch that anymore because it's not as exciting. It's not as stimulating. Well, more news is on the way, right? That will come back. And we have to really be thinking about what is it that is our top priorities that are going to help us get to ultimately the top of that mountain. What do we need to be focusing on? And that's how we can prioritize getting ourself closer to the base of that mountain where all those opportunities continue to open up. But even then, some opportunities will be like, hey, this is this noisy thing over here. I always say this to my clients. The more focused you are, the more you're taking consistent action, the more you're on track to achieving a major accomplishment, the more opportunities are going to show up and come knocking without fail. And so I often have my clients at that point keep a notebook, and that notebook, every opportunity that comes along goes in there, and it either gets a yes, no, maybe later, right? And when we have a really clear vision and we understand the outcomes that we need to focus on to help us get to that vision, you can use the same strategy. When all this chatter and all this noise comes along, is this an opportunity or is this something that needs to distract me now? Yes, no, it doesn't need to distract me now. It's not going to take me off my course because I got to keep moving. Or, you know what, this might be a great opportunity to take advantage of later or look at later, but not right now. Does that answer your question, Angelo?
Yes, I think that segues into a perspective from maybe Joelle's side is how can we turn a perceived, maybe that's the key word here, obstacle into an opportunity?
My answer to anything like that is always one thing: ask a better question. Everything, like Emily said, it all comes down to meaning. We are masters of meaning. The only things, so if we do a quick recap, here's our quick recap, right? The only thing we have control over is ourselves. The degree to which we control ourselves and we're effective or ineffective is the way that we interpret the things that are going on around us. That's making us a master of meaning. The way that we interpret and the way that our effectiveness shows up is by using our voila, is being clear on our vision, our outcomes, all of those pieces. Turning an obstacle into an opportunity is as simple as asking a question like, what else could this mean? What could be the gift behind this opportunity? How can I learn this? How can I use this opportunity to grow? Or it could be an even more subtle question of, is there a way to use this opportunity to ladder up to my ultimate vision? Or even this problem, is there a way to use this challenge to ladder up to my ultimate vision? In any moment of every day, we're making a decision. That decision is either going to move us closer to or further from our ultimate vision. The way to handle an obstacle is to look at how that obstacle can be used to either move us closer to or further from our goal. If it's going to move us further from our goal, we have a couple of options. One is we deal with it. We look for a way to find a way to transform it, mitigate it, make it work to our advantage. If it's a genuine obstacle, we have to look at it and go, okay, if I'm going to climb up a mountain, I'll tell you this story. I was in Fiji with Tony Robbins. We were climbing, I think I told this to you before, Angela. We were climbing, he likes to do this mountain hike in Fiji. I am not an exercise girl, as you may have guessed by this podcast. Takes a lot of work. I'm not you, Angelo. So we were going to climb this mountain, and Tony said in his infinite wisdom, I was like, how the heck are we going to get to the top of this mountain? And he said, Joelle, when we get closer, the paths will appear. And that's the thing that we want people to really recognize too, is if you're on the right track and you're taking action, you're moving consistently, the paths will appear. So if there's an obstacle in one part of your path, that's not going to keep us from the end goal, right? I'm sure, Angelo, in starting Family Office Association, it wasn't all smooth sailing every step of the way. And I'm sure this last year of having to change your entire business and pivot was not an anticipated thing that you were going to do, but you turned that obstacle into an opportunity. And the way you did that is you found a way. You probably asked yourself questions like, what can I do to still add value for my members, even though I can't do in-person events? And here we all are. So questions are definitely the most powerful way. Let me tell you this too. You ask your brain a question, your brain will find an answer. So ask good questions because you're going to get an answer.
And Emily, what if a person, or they perceive this from their mental attitude, is not the kind of person who handles change well?
Well, I just want to acknowledge the change, the little word that you inserted into that question, Angela, which is if they perceive that they can't handle change well. Change is going around us all the time. It's not a matter of can we handle change, it's how comfortable are we with change, right? When we're not comfortable with change, change feels scary or terrifying or horrible or whatever. When we're okay with change, change can even feel good. It can be exciting. It can be another opportunity. It can be a way to get us moving because it's something different, right? Instead of just the same old. And so one of the things that I think is really important as part of the voila step, it's the third step, is identity, right? And Joelle talked about this before. Identity is how we describe ourselves, of who we are, but it's also the qualities that we hold near and dear to us as how we want to show up, right? And so there are two questions that I think are really important to ask when someone has a clear definition of their vision of or where they want to go. Who do I need to be to show up on a daily basis, right? Who do I need to be in order to get to that vision, knowing that the paths are going to be moving. Like I can't just set one path and be like, that's the way I'm going to do. Like I'm going to get closer to the mountain on this one path. And if I need to hop on a different path, I'm going to hop on a different path and I'm still going to keep striving forward. And then the other question is, how do I need to show up today? So Benjamin Franklin used to have this code of conduct that he kept in his pocket. And they were these qualities that he strove to embody every single day. And he kept these in his pocket and he referred to them all the time. You can Google them if you want, you'll see them. But they were how he lived his life. And that helped determine how he reacted to everything. It became less of a reaction and more of a response. His life became very intentional because he had not only a clear vision of where he wanted to go, but how he wanted to show up to get there, right? And so who do I need to be? That could be a statement like, I'm a participant in life. I am not a spectator. Like, bring it on. I want to take on life. So that's a way to describe yourself. And how do I need to show up today? That's Joelle was talking about. I need to be disciplined. I need to be creative. I need to be determined. I need to be intentional. I need to be, probably all of us need a little bit more of this right now, but I need to really invoke fun, right? I need to take on joie de vivre, a little bit of zest of life. I need to be more grateful, more appreciative of all the little things, so that all those little things that can seem like, oh my God, that's boring, I have to deal with that again today. Like, oh, cool, I get to do this. Like my kids are home again today. Like, what can I do today to have a different conversation with my son about his classes, his IB chemistry class that he rolls out of his bedroom, right, at 10:30 after taking IB chemistry, having already taken pre-calc. What can I ask that's different? Like, totally get us both out of the same monotony. How can I work on building and strengthening our relationship right now, right? How can the questions I ask help transform his experience, right? So it's this idea of you are who you say you are, right? If you say you struggle with change and this is the hardest time of your life, that's going to be your experience. If you say, you know what, in the past, change has been really hard for me, what I've realized is that I'm pretty resilient. And as long as I tap into where do I want to be and be flexible in my approach, and instead of trying to eat the elephant all in one bite, it's what can I do today? What are the bites that I can take today? What are the things that I can do that can get me 5 yards closer to the end zone today? Not throw the whole Mary. Or the Hail Mary, right? It's like, what are those, the whole Mary,
The whole Mary.
the whole Mary, right? It's like, what are those steps that I can take? And as long as I'm taking consistent action, like Joelle said, the paths are going to open up, right? As you might not, when you're far away from the mountain, it's hard to see how you're going to get to the top. You can't see all the paths. You get closer, the paths open up.
And I just want to add something else to that, though, too, really quickly, is one of the things that we recommend to our clients do is similar to what Emily was saying before, is make a list of all the changes you've already handled. Remember, change, believing that I'm not a good person or not good with change is just a belief. And what's a belief? A belief is just a feeling of certainty based on references. So how do you change it? Make a new belief, create a new belief, and find references for it. I guarantee you every single person who's going to listen to this could probably make a list of 20 or 30 things that they've had to change in just the last year alone. So that helps you build up the identity. You know what? I'm pretty good at change. I didn't think I was, but look at all this stuff I handled and changed in the last year. I'm pretty amazing at it. And you start to build that new identity.
And Emily, building upon that, how can we proactively be ready for the unexpected?
It's really about building that foundation. I mean, we've kind of hammered it, right? The voila process, right? It's really about becoming a master of meanings, which really is, it's asking better questions. You ask better questions, you're going to get better answers. One of the books that I think should be a must read for every human on this earth is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah,
if you haven't read that book, read it, right? Once your kids hit high school, have them read that book, because the meanings that we decide upon create our beliefs, and our beliefs drive our feelings and our actions and reinforce our identity, right? It all feeds together. And so that's really building your foundation. And then you've got this vision and you've got a way to get there, right? Your outcomes, your action steps. You form your identity to be in line with that vision and create leverage, get really, really honed into your why, your purpose, right? This can be a time of misery, or this can be a time of rebirth and excitement and forging yourself into this new identity of how do I want to be living? How do I want to show up? How do I want my kids to think of me? Right? How do I want my colleagues to think of me? How do I want my peers to think of me? How do I want to think of me? One of the things that we talk about is success isn't about achieving goals. Success is really about your quality of life. So people can be quote unquote successful and have achieved a lot of things, but be very miserable. Success and fulfillment are totally different beasts, right? And so maybe now the time is to ask, how can I be more fulfilled? And that starts in here, right? There are all these external things that can help ladder you to where you want to go and create growth and opportunities, but really having a sense of being the best version of yourself. And that's what Joelle and I are really committed to. Whatever your best version of yourself is, that's where we want to help you get to and experience the highest level of fulfillment.
And ladies, in a short while, we're going to go to kind of what I call a lightning round, where I just barrage you with questions and effectively look for usually 30-second to 1-minute answers. But before we get to that, I think the foundation that you laid is so important. Maybe Joelle, if you want, if you could do a bit of a recap, because I think there was really some great advice there, but maybe tying it together, then we'll move on to that lightning round.
Okay. All right. So just again, doing a quick recap, talking about resiliency. Resiliency is really being able to bounce back, right? That's what we're talking about. What allows you to be able to bounce back? First thing that allows you to be able to bounce back, like Emily talked about, is being a master of meaning, being able to find empowering meanings, being able to ask better questions and look for opportunities instead of obstacles. How do we do that? By clearly knowing what our vision is and doing our voila. Everything else, it's kind of like if you are watching a football game or a basketball game, right? And everyone's out on the field, they're playing really hard. At some point, though, you're going to look up and go, what's the score? How much time do we have left in this game? You kind of want to know where you are. That's kind of what's always bringing you back for a reality check. Your voila is that, like Emily was saying, your voila is your true north. So we want to be a master of meaning. We want to use our voila to make sure that we're focused on our vision. We know what outcomes we want to use to get to that vision. We have an empowering identity of who and how we need to show up. We've got leverage on ourselves to make it a must. And then we've got actions that we're going to take. And then the most important thing in all of this is once you're clear on who you want to be, where you want to go, and how you want to show up, is building routines and rituals. I always say to my clients every day, if you imagine you wake up in the morning, you wake up in the morning, you start out here. And then something happens in the day and it's like, it's okay. It's a little bit, it's good. It's not great, but it's fine. Then something happens, you got a setback. Now you're down here a little bit, and then something good happens, you're up here. Then you have a setback, you're down here. So you're just kind of like going in this kind of up and down trajectory where you're not really having any impact in your level of energy, excitement, fulfillment, whatever. But if you start every day with a morning ritual that gets your head right, gets your body engaged, gets your energy engaged, you're starting up here. Now, if something happens that throws you off a little, you're down here a little, you're up here a little, you're down here a little, you're up here a little, but you're miles ahead where you would have been. And every single one of us knows when we're having a great day and we're in the zone and some little thing happens, it doesn't bother us. But when we're not in the zone, everything bothers us. Everything can take us off course. So the ultimate way of being resilient is to being the master of your own countenance. It's to being the master of your own focus. It's to not let things outside yourself determine how you're going to feel. And as you know, there's that expression, I don't know who came up with it. I like to credit to Tony, but it's not him. That, you know, success is an inside job, and the inside job is here. And that's what this whole conversation has been about. How do you create resiliency? You do it here in all the ways that we talked about.
I mean, I'm trying to think of from the perspective of our family office relationships, investors. And again, that's been heightened during COVID-19 for a variety of reasons, ways they could think about things differently. So effectively, they could make better decisions. So on to a little bit of that lightning round. And I'm not sure that I totally buy into what my comment or question is going to be, but I want to hear your feedback again, because I have a fair amount to get to. Let's probably leave a little that we could always follow up on in the future. But in terms of what first comes to mind, I'll start with the first. Today's the most important day of your life. Is that true?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, I'll go. It is, because it's the day that you have impact, right? And so this moment is the moment you have impact. And every moment is an opportunity to show up magnificently. Or if you get off track, right? I use the analogy of people who are trying to lose weight, right? And they are like, they're on track and they're doing really well. And then all of a sudden something happens and they're like, oh, I'm going to have a spoonful of ice cream. Then there's a moment of choice, right? That spoonful of ice cream tastes really good. There's a moment of choice where they go, oh, F it. I ate the ice cream. So now I'm just going to finish the gallon. Or they go, that was really good. I'm going to thank myself for taking that little bite of a treat, and I'm going to get back on track, right? And I think it's really important to create that vision, but that vision can't come into play without mastering your mindset today and in this moment. And every moment is a new opportunity to recreate that again. So the past gives us tremendous perspective. There's so much value and looking to the past to pull lessons, we can still look to the past every single day in terms of, gosh, I'm keep falling in this habit. What meaning did I create back then? That's the power of the past. What meaning did I create from the events that have happened in the past that I'm filtering my life with? Got my glasses on, right? Filtering my life with today. Maybe I need to shift some meanings, right? But every moment is an opportunity to have a beautiful moment ahead of it. Joelle, do you want to
And
add anything, or Angelo?
I mean, these are probably bundled together relative to what some people call critical thinking, how we make decisions. We all have problems. How do we go about solving those problems? Are there certain processes or mindsets that you like to addressing what everyone goes through in everyday life?
I'll address this a little bit in the context of what you were talking about earlier, Angelo, which is the context of investments and finance and money. So I'll address it from that standpoint. So I work with a lot of venture capital partners, and this is the best way I can explain it to you. One of my clients one day, I talked to him on the phone. Our call was at 5:30, and I asked him how his day was, and he told me his day was terrible, that his whole day was crappy, and he looked at all these deals, and every deal was awful, and it was a complete waste of a day. And so my first question to him was, did you do your morning routine today? And he said, no. I said, let's do an experiment. Tomorrow morning, you get up, do your morning routine, get yourself into the right mindset, and then come back and look at these deals again and see how they look to you. And not surprisingly, he had a very different experience of the deals that he was looking at when he was in a different space. So whether it is looking for challenges or opportunities when there are none, or feeling pressured because outside sources, or feeling disempowered because you can't do things the old way, all of those things that are reaction to the current circumstances are all things that can be mitigated by getting your head right, being clear on what you're trying to accomplish, and then just evaluating what's coming at you, either as whether this is something that's useful or not useful, and making your decisions coming from a place of power. The last thing any of us want to do is make a decision that's coming from a place of fear, uncertainty, whatever. So how this affects our decision making and investing, 100%. If we're not in a good headspace to make an investment, some of these investments, as you well know, Angelo, it's a $25 million check, it's a $30 million check, it's a $50 million check. They're not insignificant amounts of money. You do not want to be making decisions like that when you're in a space where you are not feeling the best of who you are. That's the time to make those decisions. So that's how it comes into play. And it's critically important for important decision making.
I would say so. You probably left me with a series of follow-up questions, because I have heard that from investors in terms of they see opportunities and deals, but whatever, they were having an issue at home, they had other things going on, their mind was not in the right place, and they often bypassed on things that could have been potentially beneficial. It's great that you bring that story up. Is that almost implying that critical decisions should be made after a morning routine? Do people make better decisions?
Always.
100% of the time.
Always. You should always, and I've told this story before, and Emily knows these people too. Brad and Linda Bowden, they came through some seminars, 25 years ago. And at the time they were making about $100,000 a year combined. And their goal was to make $250,000 that year in real estate commissions. And the one thing that they did, the only commitment that they made, is they were never going to show up at the site of an opportunity to make money at being less than 100%. That was their only decision. So before every phone call, every meeting, every presentation, they were making their power move. They were getting themselves in state. They were putting on great music. They were focusing on their goals. Every single time they made $500,000 that year. It was the most money they'd ever made. So yeah, 100% every time.
So then that relates also a little bit to mindset. I read a book called Magnetism. It goes back over 100 years. And it talks about the mental mindset in terms of how you think of yourself, but also from a physical perspective. And I won't bore the audience with a granular dive into it, but this probably relates to some things you've learned from being an early employee and knowing Tony Robbins over the years. That word is a vague term. That person has magnetism, but let's use Tony as an example. It's so obvious that he does. What makes someone a magnet for others? Is it simply they're an eternal optimist? That's probably part of it, but it must be more than that.
It's much more intentional than that. I mean, Tony.
Emily, you might have froze on Wi-Fi.
Emily, are you back?
Joelle, did you want to pick up on that?
I'll pick up on that until she comes back. So yeah, with Tony, I think what Emily's saying is it is intentional, but I think one of the greatest things that gives Tony charisma is presence. He is unbelievably present. I actually just did an interview with Magic Johnson on Monday for something, and we were talking about Tony, and he said, you know, when Tony Robbins says hello to you, you feel like you can do anything in the world. So Magic Johnson literally said, when Tony Robbins says hi, you're like, man, I can do anything. And it's because he's so present. He's so there. He's so connected and so obviously putting all his energy and attention to the person that he's with. It has an incredible amount of compelling magnetism to it because people feel like they're really seen, they're really heard. For so many of us, we're distracted with our phones, we're doing other things, we're not present with our children, we're not present with other people. That's a huge piece. One of the other things I think, aside from the fact that Tony has a tremendous amount of charisma and presence as a person, the way that he uses his body, the way that he expresses himself, the way he uses humor. But the other thing that creates magnetism is he's very good at connecting with people and giving them information based on their own reasons, not his. He's very good at finding out what matters to Angelo. What is it that really is going to connect with Angelo in a meaningful way? And that gives him an incredible amount of magnetism too. He's very good at doing that, whether it's in a one-on-one situation or with a group. But again, it comes from every single time he shows up somewhere, he shows up 100% his best. I don't know if you remember, but even when we were in Santa Monica backstage, Tony was getting ready, doing his ritual before he comes on stage. Does he need to anymore? He's done it thousands of times. Of course not. But for him, it's a must because that's how he connects. That's how he gets into that right space. So that's where the magnetism comes from. Preparation, presence.
How do
passion.
you, when you're dealing with someone else, they bring baggage into the conversation that you're having relative to, are they having a good or a bad day? How do you potentially get them in a better mindset? I'm not saying you want to manipulate them per se, but how do you get them to get out of that negative state and interact in a way that could be more mutually beneficial?
Well, one of the things you can do in a situation like that is definitely meet people where they're at. If somebody is not in a good mind state, they're full of complaints and grievances or whatever, the way to get them in a better state is not to dismiss it, not to say, oh, don't worry about that, it's going to be fine. It's to kind of first meet them where they're at. I understand that that's how you feel. Is there anything I can help you with? There's anything you want to talk about? And kind of gradually move them a little bit to, it's called pacing and leading. That's what the actual term is called, pacing and leading. So you meet people where they are, and then you gradually pull them ahead. So someone says, oh, I'm having a hard time with this. You say, oh, I understand that. I can understand how you feel that way. Well, what have you been doing to make it better? Get them to talk about that a little bit. If they can't talk about that, you can change the subject and get them on something else. So, let's talk about what you're doing with the company right now. That's great. Just gradually kind of bringing them into a different topic, a different situation. Now, the degree to which you want to spend time consistently with someone that's in that space is going to matter how important they are to you and how relevant they are to your life. That's a whole different conversation. We could do a whole topic on communication. Yes.
Yes, we could. And that relates to also even something called framing in terms of when you're in conversation with someone. And some people would find
Absolutely.
it a bit manipulative or taking control, but that's not necessarily the case. We'll save that one for.
Well, but you know what? I want to just say one thing too about that, Angela, with the framing is not manipulative. What framing does is it says, look, here's a whole world of things you can look at For the purposes of our conversation, I'd like you to look here. That's what framing does. Framing sets up an expectation and anticipation with your person that you're speaking to of what you want them to be paying attention to as you move forward. So it's not really a manipulation. It's more of a helpful filter to give people a way to process information.
And towards the end, maybe a final question. I read it from Brian Kite's blog this morning, who's a good writer about certain topics, but health, nutrition, exercise, what we spoke about earlier, relationship dynamics, emotional patterns, technical capabilities, a lack of fulfillment by effectively lack of motivation. Here's the good news. In today's world, with free resources, YouTube and Google, to books and other resources, basically from $0 to $200, you're at a unique point in history that people even 10 or 15 years ago were not, and for sure not 20 or 30 years ago, for relatively zero cost to very, very low to modest cost. You could change everything about your future. Is it almost too easy? Is it information overload? How do you decide to move forward, get the resources you need, and kind of take action?
I think it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, and I agree with you. And this is an incredible time. Everything from master classes that you can participate in to incredible content on YouTube to all of those things. There is an unlimited number of things. But ultimately, if you asked any one of us, if we could have our life be any way we want it, we pretty much have a sense of what we want that to look like, how we want to feel, the kind of people we want to be around, where we want to live, the kind of things that we want to be doing. We have kind of a sense of what that is. We may have blocked off some of it because we believed it wasn't possible for us, or whatever was going on externally at that time, or the pandemic or the financial crisis or whatever. But ultimately, we all kind of have an idea of where we think that we're trying to get to. Ultimately, what the discernment comes down to is asking ourselves great questions, like, based on where we want to go, what's the biggest bang for our buck? What is most likely? What is the next action that's most likely to move me closer to that goal? And it's going to change. If I would have asked you 2 years ago, Angelo, how big of a portion of your business doing these podcasts would be, you would never have told me that it was going to become the foundation of the entire business. So those things grow and change. But the way that you're discerning is you're discerning by asking yourself, is this going to move me closer to or further from the life that I really want? And is this the biggest bang for my buck and the highest use of our time? Then underneath that, you got to remember the difference between taking the action and not taking the action. I see a question here about motivation. The motivation comes from your why. When you're doing something for the right reasons and you're headed to your goal, the actual activity that you're engaged with to get there is pretty much irrelevant. If you're experiencing that you're on the right track and you're moving that direction, you may change, you may make alterations as you go, but it's really about staying focused. The one thing I say to my clients who do have that problem when they are spoiled for choice, where there's a new shiny object all the time, whether it's a new investment, a new business opportunity, whatever, I say this to them: finish one thing that you started. Finish one thing, complete one thing that you believe is going to get you closer to that goal. Finish one thing, because the process itself of going from idea to completion is a huge success builder. It gives you the dopamine hit, it builds your confidence, and it brings you closer to the mountain, and more paths will appear. So that also comes into play with discipline. Motivation to make sure you're taking the action, discipline to make sure you're staying on track. And honestly, for people like Emily and I, that's where we come into play. For most of our clients, it's not a lack of opportunity. It's not a lack of ideas. It's not a lack of finances or resources to do it. It's a lack of staying on track. It's a lack of keeping them from being distracted. And it's a lack of getting in their own way by letting their old stuff come in and interrupt their current process. So a lot of it's just clearing the cobwebs out. But I hope that answers your question.
Yes. I mean, of course, it brings up more questions, but I do want to be mindful of time and somewhat focused on what we originally were talking about. So maybe in concluding, this was really fantastic with Joelle and Emily. Yes, I do have so many more questions. We'll have to wait to other ones upcoming. Let's not try to tackle everything in one session per se. Like I mentioned earlier, Joelle and Emily are with their Mindset Partnership, an organization that is a part of what we call our Resource Council inside a family office association. So our members get opportunities to engage beneficially with organizations like what Joelle and Emily do. And actually, they've been very kind with some complimentary 1-hour consultative services and such. So again, that's a little bit of an indirect plug, I guess you could say, to being active and being a member in an organization like Family Office Association. Trust me, we all love to give away free content and information, not just for brand awareness, but we want to do good to everyone involved. But to take it to another level, to make it more customized specifically to you, that's an opportunity to engage. And that's one of the benefits in terms of being a member. So on that note, everyone, I'm Angelo Robles. I'm the host of the Angelo Robles Podcast and founder and CEO at Family Office Association. And you can learn more about Family Office Association. Well, it's pretty easy. Our website is the same name, familyofficeassociation.com. It's very built out and detailed. We consider you looking into membership. You'll find it, and very easy to sign up and be a part of it if you want to interact in all that we have to offer right now. Before I do a little bit of a final close in terms of how you could connect and learn more, why don't I turn it over to Joelle for a second so she could talk a little bit about how you could learn more about what her and Emily are doing and how you could connect with them. Joelle?
Thank you, Angelo. So yes, anybody can go to our website, which is mindsetpartnership.com, and it talks about all the different programs that we do. Like I mentioned, a lot of our clients are in venture capital, private equity, family office space, also entertainment, and some founders. It's kind of our area that we focus on. We are very excited to be working with Family Office Association. As Angelo said, for those of you who actually are members, again, wanting to give you more of an experience of being at a live event where we normally get to interact with you one-on-one, face-to-face. We want to still have that same interaction. So Angela is very kindly going to be, over the next several weeks and months, offering you opportunities to connect one-on-one with some of the Resource Council members, including Emily and I. So for any of you who want to do a one-on-one strategy session and kind of build your own resiliency plan, we're happy to do that with you. And you can get that information. Angela's going to send out an email to everybody. You can get that information, or you can certainly go to our website at mindsetpartnership.com.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Joelle. And again, I gave the info to learn more about Family Office Association. If you're not a member, my direct email is angelo@familyofficeassociation.com. I'm extremely active on social media. We actually had a pretty comprehensive post. You're graduating college now, go up on Instagram with a significant YouTube video that I did with a Forbes 50 kind of young entrepreneur from a variety of different perspectives. So that was a lot of fun. And probably YouTube now is my primary platform for what we disseminate more openly to the public. And very simply, you could find it, but we're Family Office, just one word, and you'll see it. I recommend simply you go and subscribe. It's free. There's a fair amount, probably more than I should, of free resources on there that I'm sure you'll find valuable. Joelle, and although we lost a connection with Emily, but I'll still say, Emily, thank you both so much for being a part of our program today, and look forward to the next time.
Thank you, Angelo.
My pleasure. Bye.